access to lower bands, but those lower bands are fully assigned, and it is very hard to free those bands. Okay. Another issue is millimeter anti-radiation bands suffer from their sensitivity to blockage and external climatic conditions, molecular absorption, directivity, and channel uncertainty. Okay, so for all these reasons, approaches based on spectrum sharing are more popular today and are actively pursued. Okay, so let's see how there is how the standardization efforts get to this concept of spectrum sharing. So we can, if we do benchmark regarding various efforts on standardization in this regard, we can classify them according to many aspects. For example, spectrum access schemes. We have tiered access models, like in US, SAS in US, spectrum access system, or licensed shared access in Europe. We have also standalone unlicensed access, which is standalone technology in the licensed bands, basically in 5 GHz, like 𝗰𝗎. We can also aggregated licensed and unlicensed bands, like in AA, release 13, 14, and 15 𝗘𝘃𝗵𝗃. We have the same thing, LTU, which is basically the same concept as LA, except the access, which is not LBT, which is not listened before talk. It's based on the cycle. Okay. We have also 5GU, or 5G unlicensed, which is under standardization actually, release 16 and release 17. Now we have also LWA, LTE with Wi-Fi aggregation standardized in release 13, 14, and 15. We have also many other standards, IEEE standards for coexistence, 22 and 11I. We have also recently the recent spectrum sharing, which is a sort of coexistence between LTE and 5G in the same bands and in the millisecond at the millisecond scale. We can also classify according to spectrum occupancy awareness, spectrum sensing, or geographic database. We can also classify according to the degree of freedom. We access the spectrum according to time or frequency or space or code or the angle of arrival. Okay, so this slide just to show the study items or the working items in 𝗘𝘃𝗵𝗃 in related to spectrum sharing. According to the definition of spectrum sharing by 𝗘𝘃𝗵𝗃, because it is a little bit different about spectrum sharing in literature. Okay. So the late or the recent spectrum sharing standard introduced by 𝗘𝘃𝗵𝗃 is the 5G new radio unlicensed. It works in unlicensed bands, basically the sub 7 GHz, but we envision to get to higher unlicensed bands in future releases. 5G new radio unlicensed can be seen as the convergence of all the efforts initiated by 𝗘𝘃𝗵𝗃 regarding spectrum sharing concepts. Okay, so it is a backward compatible standard. If we see the various scenarios that we envision to deploy 5G new radio unlicensed, we can see that it is basically relying on carrier aggregation between licensed and unlicensed, dual connectivity, standalone new radio in unlicensed bands, for example. We have also separated uplink and downlink, and we have also dual connectivity either between licensed LTE and the new radio unlicensed, or between licensed new radio and unlicensed new radio. This is the really 16, or this is the items we are working on, or the 𝗘𝘃𝗽𝗽 are working on today. So just to conclude my presentation, the question now is what comes after 5G new radio licensed? We can call it 6G licensed, for example. What this 6G licensed will look like? Other spectrum sharing frameworks can be explored, not only combined access between licensed and unlicensed bands, but also we can explore coexistence, the real coexistence between many bands, for example, like in IEEE 22 or 11I, for example, using not only, for example, geographic databases, we can also explore distributed spectrum occupancy awareness, which has shown has proven to be very practical in practice. Okay, but in this situation, we will need to pick up another name because it will not be 6G licensed, but it will be other thing. Okay, we have also the myth of even and odd mobile generation. We also always say that the even generations work very fine compared to old generations. Okay, like for example 2G, 4G. These are the main generations that have really get very popular and high user acceptance. Will it the same thing for 5G and 6G? We will need to wait to see, because for regarding spectrum sharing, I wish that 6G will introduce more advanced schemes of spectrum sharing in release, for example, releases 18, 19, and 20, for example. Spectrum sharing paradigm is among the most active research topics today. However, there is a need for more boost from telecommunication stakeholders, because we need more boost from MNOs, from mobile network operators, from regulators, to see more working items in various standardization organizations like 3GPP or other organisms. Many in literature, we find many proof of concept studies, many demonstrations, many pilot trials, especially in Africa, for example. In Malawi, they connected the school, seismology department, the defense force, and the hospital, and using TV white spaces solutions. They have get a record for the longest operational TVWS link as of the 1st May 2014. It is a link of 20 kilometer distance. So we can see that there is a big potential for remote area using spectrum sharing. We can connect remote densely populated area using this concept. And finally, the dynamic spectrum sharing concept needs to be extended and carefully tailored to suit the characteristics of millimeter waves and terrestrial waves. Why? Because basically and mainly today we work, dynamic sharing is done for sub-6 gigahertz bands. There is more characteristics in millimeter wave and terrestrial wave to tailor. Like, for example, the LBT, the listen before talk protocol, which does not work under its basic format for this higher bands, and there is many ongoing research projects on that. So this is comes at the end of my presentation. I will need to thank Kanish for this invitation, and we can discuss later regarding more advanced questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽𝐿𝘂. Thank you for your time. Before we can move on to the next presenter, Is Professor 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗂𝗃 is here? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Sorry for the technical delay.
Great. So Professor Chris will be talking on the education versus the miseducation of the public about 5G. Please, Professor.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure for me to be invited to participate in this unique occasion because a lot of the lay media, or what I call the popular media, has come up with so many distortions, particularly in recent times. Because if you have the truth, it's difficult for somebody to give you a falsehood. In a way, I believe that the industry made a huge assumption, a set of assumptions. One, that everybody already has a mobile phone, which is not true. Two, everybody experienced first G, second G, third G, and then therefore 4G. And so introducing a fifth G would be a straightforward thing. And then three, the elite, that means people that consume this product at a very high level, have already decided in their minds what they want to do and resistance to any new advances. It's like saying you want to make a car that drives at 500 miles an hour, when really what you are talking about is improving the efficiency of the already existing car. So the telecommunications industry has to come back to make everyone aware that it's not a technology industry. It's not about applying the fine research of science for itself. It's about solving a fundamental global problem. It's about assisting doctors in the hospital to see their patients quickly. It's about assisting teachers in the classroom to teach their students better. It's about assisting pilots to be able to fly their planes faster, safer, and better. So if we are able to have what I call a sectorial angle to the deployment of this technology, the controversies, or quote unquote, will evaporate, and the misinformation will immediately be eliminated. I'll give you a quick example about automobile industry. Everybody knows today that at least 7 human beings will die because of a car. Everybody knows that today. So there is a danger involved in driving a car. But everybody also knows that there is nobody that needs a car that will not go and use a car. So because I need a car to move from point A to point B, I'm able to understand the little risk involved in driving a car. This has not been made clear to current users of 4G and potential users of 5G. We have not done the car equivalent of educating, not just telling, because there's a lot of information about why you need to buy this product, why you need to buy this product. But there's no information about how this product will help you deal with your current problem of, for instance, climate change. Because if we are able to angle it in such a way that it addresses fundamental truths, one, two, also demonstrate that it's been piloted. There is no device I know of that has not been beta tested. That means made first, given to limited number of users, and then the limited number of users are able to report back to the makers, and then the makers will change one or two things about that particular device, product, medicine. It doesn't matter whatever we are talking about. Whatever is coming out as Mark version 2, we give it to a limited number of people to experience it and then feed back to the engineering people, to the design people, to the manufacturers, so that they are now saying, okay, this is now going to be the final version because we have corrected the initial teething problems or the initial difficulties or the initial assumptions we made about mass usage. That's an essential point. I feel every single person involved in telecoms, this is not limited to 5G, by the way, involved in telecom ought to be able to demonstrate that to the potential users and the benefactors. And I will summarize by just adding one point. Most of this current generation of patients cannot recall when they went to the hospital. They were ill, they went to the hospital. And then when they got to the hospital, they spent half an hour looking for their physical manual record. Most people cannot recall that now. Because when I was in St. George's up to the point in 1992, when a patient came, some patients spent more time waiting for their record to be located than they spent with the doctor that saw them about their disease. I repeat this. When you enter the hospital, they will take your name and then they will go upstairs to the medical records and they will look for your name based on your father's surname. And because the last person that filed your record does not know their A to Z alphabet in the right order, the person misfiled your record. And so you'll be kept waiting for up to half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, while they are going looking for your records, and the doctor cannot see you until they get your record. And then when they eventually find your record, 1 hour to the time, then the doctor will see you, and the doctor will spend 7 minutes seeing you, but you spend about an hour waiting for your record. So if you understand that, then electronic medical records will not be a debate for you, because with the electronic medical record, all the doctors need is the doctor himself, his username and password, and once he logs into the computer, he just types in your surname and your entire record comes up on his screen, and it takes less than 3 seconds for your record to be found. And so nobody needs to go upstairs, downstairs, everywhere looking for your record. So this simple case study of what we now call clinical informatics has demonstrated A, the benefit of having your record stored electronically to the patient, who is the user, B, to the practitioner, who is the doctor, and C, to the health authority, that means the owner of the hospital, the person that controls the hospital. So it is convenient, it is cost effective, and it is quicker. And there is no other way any person's record can ever be lost. Now, before some records were lost. So this case study I just gave you now about the medical application of technology, it must be the template for deploying 5G or any subsequent advances that we as technologists have to deploy to any group of people. Thank you very much, and I will wait for any questions.
I thank you, Professor. Thank you for your time. I would like to proceed to the next speaker, 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽𝗀 from Ivory Coast, on the topic of the importance of secure 5G for drone operations.
Okay, yeah, just give me a second. Maybe, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you can see like a drone and some points taken. Is it clear?
Yeah, clear, yeah.
Okay. So my name is Arsene. I'm actually an aerospace engineer, educated in Ukraine next to Russia. Then I returned to Africa, and I'm in the drone industry now after working as aircraft maintenance engineer. So I'd like to stress the importance of 5G, especially when it comes to millisecond latency, and why that is very important in the aerospace industry. For instance, if we need high definition data in real time, 5G plays a big role. This image you're seeing here is an example of Prodrone. It's a Japanese company. We did a test in 2018 where they will be able to get real-time high definition data, which is quite difficult now with the normal type of internet we have to carry out their works. And even in construction sites, you really need, if you're using drones, you really need a quick reaction time when you're looking at things such as inspecting critical infrastructure. And also if you're tracking, for instance, if because of how aviation is booming now and a lot of air traffic and operating drones at the same time, you really need to have precise tracking of the drones so that they don't collide with one another, you don't create a catastrophe and don't affect the civil aviation. So to create unmanned traffic management systems now require high-speed connection because the level of connection that's already there is not good. So the benefits for us in the drone industry is basically just quick reaction time and having data just in real time. That's very, very important for us, and there's nothing that can be compared to that. And so 5G is quite a big breakthrough for us, and I just hope that will be a reality soon, because even me, if I'm using drones for instance, aerial mapping, sometimes due to network issues, I can't track the drone. So maybe after 2 seconds, I lose a signal and it just appears because it already has the GPS coordinates embedded in it when it's mapping. It comes back automatically to the home point. So to prevent all these issues again, we have to have better high-speed internet, and the only challenge I think is making it accessible, especially in Africa. Usually the internet here is not very, very good. That's one thing. It's quite a challenge. So the question I've been posed to some of the people there is, how can you make 5G, for instance, from more affordable even for the aerospace industry? You understand? So yeah, basically that's what I wanted just to point out, to show you people that 5G for us in the aerospace industry is all about high definition data being presented in real time and precise tracking of fleet so that there's no conflict in the national airspace. Yeah, so it's quite short for me.
Great. Thank you, 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗽𝗀. So the next speaker, I would like to welcome 𝗘𝘃 𝗵𝘂𝗃𝗃 from Singapore on the 5G applications in industrial environment and critical infrastructure.
Okay, thank you so much, Ganesh. Yeah, so while we're running behind a bit of the time, so I'll take quick minutes and just a bit of background. I'm based out of Singapore, as Ganesh mentioned, and I run a company called All Things Connected, which is an IoT-focused strategy and solutions company. So for us, as we focus IoT from the solutions and the use case perspective, 5G for us is pretty much a layer in the whole IoT solution. As you might know, most of you, that IoT is a complex area of putting the solutions together. So whereas 5G is driving a lot of use cases, as the other technologies like LPWAN did and still doing so. So we are pretty much use case focused company. Our focus area right now in this region is mobility, transportation, industrial IoT, as well as smart building and the smart use cases. So I personally spend quite a time with academia as well, as you might see. I do take lectures on time in those universities. So this is a bit of background. So as you know already, that there are a lot of IoT use case across various industries. Right? So what if you can categorize into two broader categories of IoT? One is the massive IoT, where we're talking about like small devices, asset tracking solutions, where we need like a small data volume, but massive in numbers. Right? So pretty much asset tracking use cases, logistics, or indoor devices in the smart buildings or smart agriculture or utilities basically are the massive IoT use cases. In Singapore and the region, we are driving a lot of such use case, especially fit for LPWAN kind of use cases, where be it Sigfox and IoT or LoRa. But then comes the other extreme, which is the critical IoT. Critical, as you know, something which we can't risk, right? Whether for the business or for the human. So those use cases would be pretty much into transportation use cases, be it autonomous vehicles or public transportation cases, trains, buses, or the smart grids at the national level, which is the critical infrastructure. As you can imagine, that if the grid get failed because of the technical reasons, the entire infrastructure can come down. Or it could be the industrial applications in the region. So Singapore, for example, is one of the largest refinery hub. If you might not know, I think it refines almost 1/5 of the world oil in Singapore. So those kind of critical infrastructure is basically where the critical IoT use case comes in, and they have to be very reliable, right? So reliable in the sense, unlike other connectivity use cases where we do not know where the guaranteed data will come in or when the data will be arrived. So we can't afford latency in those use cases. Right? So low latency is high availability, or basically where we categorize the critical IoT use cases. Right? So again, I'm keeping it very simple, and most of you must be aware of it. So nothing as such new here. But still, just for the comparison's sake, there are so many use cases, right? So one is the low bandwidth, low latency cases, and then there are high bandwidth, low latency use cases as well. So if you look at the gray area where autonomous vehicles, AR, VR use cases, right? So this is where we see the 5G use cases will fit in. Because if you have to look at the both technical as well as commercial reason, we do not want to under design or over design use cases, right? Because a lot of the use cases which are basically in the low bandwidth or high latency use cases can still be used and built with 5G, but just an overkill for them, right? So we have to identify typically what are the right use cases for 5G. And this where I see as in my conversation with most of the customers or the solution providers like Cisco, or telcos, or infrastructure providers like HP, they're more focusing towards, in my observation, either content heavy use cases, for example, AR, VR use cases, or the low latency critical use cases, right? So still, I think the industry is still figuring it out, what is the right use cases. What I have done, just for the discussion's sake, I have kind of pulled out a couple of use cases which I observed in the region. So one of the use cases I think I saw in Japan with the Nissan and 𝗀𝗂𝗽. They were talking about invisible to visible system, basically.